will this talk be about? Welcome on stage, Denny.
Thank you. Just a second. Let me set up this. Whoa. Okay.
We'll do it again. Welcome on stage, Denny. Big hand.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Like I said, I will talk about Django migrations. Are they a friend or maybe not always? And how to optimize them from testing. Quick words about me. I am Denny, the one on the right, if you are unsure on which one. And I'm a full stack developer working with everything. JavaScript, sorry for that. Python, a little bit of Go and Rust recently. And I work remotely from Fingerprint from Italy. But first thing first, I'm the last thing separating you from the lunch break. So please don't think about food. Food. Forget about food for a moment. So let's talk about migrations. Migrations are a way to propagate changes to models into your database schema. And in Django, we have useful commands for migrations. For example, make migrations, migrate, show migration, and SQL migrate. Let's inspect each one of them. The first one, make migrations, creates new migrations for your Django application. And the syntax is this one. So you can create optionally an empty migration, customizing it with your Python code. And you can even define a custom name for your migration. Otherwise, Django will automatically suggest your migration name. Oh, wait, my computer will start in 30 seconds. Not now. Not now, sorry. Okay, so make migrations. Let's try with a custom model called, pizza. Well, let's create some sort of Twitter for your favorite pizza. So you create your pizza model created by linking to a user, created that, date time, and a text field. The text field will contain a validator to check that you won't place in the text pineapple because it's against the law. I'm sorry, I'm from Italy and it's against the law. Over there, I don't know. Here. After that, you can create your migration, and in your Django directory, in your project directories, you can find your initial Python file containing the migration. Inside your migration file, you may see that you have this class migration with initial equals to true because it's the first migration of the project, and then a list of dependencies, just one in this case because we are relying on the auth user model, and apart from that, a list of operations. Again, just one in this case because we are creating our model. Then you can use migrate to apply your change to the database schema, specifying optionally the application label and also the migration name. So if you just want to apply all migrations to your database, you just run migrate. Otherwise, you can select migrate, application name, admin in this case, and 0 in order to roll back everything to the beginning without models applied to the database. And you can even move forward and backward between migration, specifying the migration name, the full name, or just the number. And then, again, apply all migrations to your admin. But how does this work under the hood? In your database, you will have a Django migrations table containing these fields. And in the table, you may see a list of applications, migration names, and the date time when they've been applied to the database. So you can see in every point of time which migrations have been applied to your database. If you're lazy, like me, instead of opening your database and navigate through tables and data, you can use show migrations, and you will have a list, in this case by application, a list of migrations with a tick if the migration has already been applied to the database. Other than this, if you want to inspect the migration code on your database, you can use SQL migrate in order to see the SQL statement of a migration. Please note that every single migration will happen in a transaction. So before every migration SQL code, you can see begin and commit and the end, because every single migration happens in a transaction. Because if something goes wrong in here, then everything will be rolled back before the migration without leaving you in a wrong state, so you can always retry the migration, correct your code and retry the migration. Now, what if you want to increase the length of a field? Well, you increase the field in your model, you create another migration, you can inspect the migration, you can see that this is not the initial migration, it relies on the first one initial, and it contains the alter field instruction. The SQL migrate will show you begin SQL command and commit, and then you can apply the migration. Pretty easy, right? But what if you want to add further changes? For example, enable pizza like or repizzas retweets for old school tweeters. And if you forgot things or you want to enable new models, then you can create another model, make changes to your database, and create another migration. And with show migrations, you end up in having a list like this one that you can apply or unapply when you want. But now, stop for real talking about food and talk about a more real application, for example, a shop application. Because what if your customers need a shop application handling customers? Then it asks you to add an isPremium field to customer, just a Boolean field. Then you create everything. You create dedicated shipping addresses because each customer may have different shipping addresses. Then you need to migrate the data from the customer model with a single address in it to the new model. And then you need to remove the customer shipping fields. So let's see the highlighted point. What if you want to create custom code? Well, you can create an empty migration, and inside it you can run Python code with this syntax here. If you don't want to run, for example, the backward function, you can add migration run Python no hope. So you can specify that you don't want to run custom code when rolling back the migration. And the migration code will be something like that. So a forward function with a schema editor that you can use to extract the database alias in order to use it to extract data from the database. And in this case, the customer model will use the model in that specific point of time during the migration, and not the current model in your Python code, because when you deploy your last version of the model, but in this case, in the migration, you need the current model, not the last one. And you can use it like this. Now the customer calls you or emails you and asks for other changes. For example, I need to increase the length of the shipping address because I want to ship in an exotic place with a long address, or add models, add fields, and stuff like that. And then you may need to rename a field. In order to rename a field, if the migration contains just that change, you can just rename the field in your model, run make migrations, and Django automatically detects that the field name has been changed and will propose you to rename it. Then, if you want to provide initial data for your tables, you don't want to, but you can create a migration, creating data inside the migration. Or even better, you can create fixture files containing your data. Fixture files are like JSON files that you can dump directly from your database using dump data and the application and the table name in a JSON file, and it will contain code like that, included a primary key for each record. Then, if you want to load data from those JSON, you can use load data, application name, and the fixture name. But what if you if you are afraid to forget to run this command when deploying? Well, you can call load data inside a migration, a custom migration, using the call command imported from Django Core Management, and loading data in the same way inside the migration. So you can forget about writing documentation. No, please, never forget about writing documentation. And what about tests? Well, in tests, in your test case, you just need to add fixtures with a list of fixture file names, and that's it. You will find your data inside your test database. But now we have a lot of migrations in our application. And of course, during development and deploy, they are great because you apply just the migrations you need. While in tests, it's a different thing. As a disclaimer, timings may change from laptop to laptop. So next slide, time was taken from my previous laptop, but it's similar to this one. So running tests, simple tests for these demo applications. With 20 applications like shop, it takes just 1 second. So that's it. You may ask, why are you talking about optimizing 1 second of tests on 20 applications? Well, when we deployed the working project on GitHub, we were using GitHub Actions, and we pay for the time we use for actions. The problem was that this single second in reality was like 30 seconds roughly, because 20 seconds for creating the test database and just 1 second for running tests. Okay, single execution in a single day, not a problem, but what if you have a lot of these tests running during your month? Then you can exceed your pro period and you need to buy the enterprise one. So how can you optimize them? A first workaround is to set migrate equal to false in your Django settings file. And when set to false, migration won't run when creating the test database, because it creates the database starting from your model. It should be perfect, right? Well, not exactly, because this one, okay, it's a single line change and it doesn't run migrations during tests, but it's like make migrations, so it needs to analyze your models and create migration, and then migrate before running tests. So in our case, it adds 5 seconds in your test execution time. Another workaround is keep DB. So when you run tests, you can add this option here, and this will preserve the test database without deleting it between test runs. If it doesn't exist, then it will be created the first time, and other migrations in future test runs will be applied in order to keep it up to date. Pros and cons. Well, running tests locally, it's perfect because it saves 20 seconds for each test run, because it keeps your database structure intact. Not a real problem, but primary key values are not reset between tests, and they can increase ad infinitum. So they can become really big, and if you are running a lot of tests, every single commit, every single code change, well, they can overflow. Yeah. The worst thing is that it's not easy to configure this in your CI/CD, because you either need to cache or create artifacts in your GitHub workflows, and this takes time too, so it's not a real solution. Or you can use an external test database, maybe a better solution. Or, thanks to a friend, you can use Django Migration CI, that it make easier for you to configure an external database, for example, on AWS or somewhere else. Another solution, thanks to Carl Frederick for suggesting me this solution, another solution is to use a seed database. So you run migrations against an empty database, you dump the content of the database to a SQL file, and then you add the file to your code tree and you restore the file on your CI database before running tests. This is faster than loading it or recreating it. So what about performances? Well, with migrate equal false, 5 seconds more. Keep DB in local, 0 seconds for creating the test database, so yeah. But on GitHub Actions, using a seed DB and keep DB, so without recreating it, then you can spend just 2 seconds to run tests, run creation DB, and then 1 second for the tests. Now, we can end here this talk, but we want to talk about squash migrations. This is another command inside Django Manage PI that squash an existing set of migrations into a single new one. Let's try to apply it to our shop application, and let's try to compress our 26 migrations into a single one. You can have a couple of warnings. So, for example, if you have custom Django function, forward and backward, you need to copy them, because it's not an automatic thing with this Django version. Maybe in the future will be. So you need to copy paste your forward and backward function for each migration file inside the squash and migration file and optimize it for that. And then inside your migration file, you can see that at the beginning of the file, it contains replaces with a list of migration names, your 26 migration files. The recommended process is to squash, keeping all files, commit and release. So in your Django migrations table, it will be added the last line containing all the squash and migration, the single file with the squash and migration. Wait until all systems are upgraded with the new release, and then you can remove old migration files, commit and do a second release. If everything is fine, then you can transition the squashed migration file to a normal file, removing all migration file it replaces, updating all migrations that depends on the other one and moving them depending to this one, and remove your replace attribute on top of your migration code. Then, if you like, you can prune all references to deleted migration with this command here. Let's test performances after squashing. Oh, you spent a lot of time squashing migration, copy, pasting code, but 90 seconds, just 1 second saved from before. Well, this wasn't a solution. So what's the point? Well, the point is with squash migration, you can move back from having several hundred migrations to just a few, because if you are like me that prefer to do small changes in your project, create migration, apply migration, and go on, then before your pull request to the main branch, you will end up in having a lot of migration files. And if you want to make it easy for reviewers to review your code, you may want to squash them in a single migration file. Oh, but you wanted to speed up tests? Well, we have a couple of solutions from before, so like the CDB. But if you really, really want to speed up tests in another exotic way, so creating everything from scratch, using as an inspiration the squash migration file, so using replaces and a list of migration, removing everything and recreating everything from scratch with a single migration. Well, I tried that road. Don't follow me, but if you want it, then let's talk about it during the lunch break. The timing is, well, you can save seconds, but it's not the best solution in the list, because recreating everything with a single migration will save you 15 seconds in this case, but the best one is the CDB. So after all of these tries, I've won. I found a perfect way of optimizing migrations for tests. But at what cost? Well, it took a couple of weeks, maybe a little bit more, on my job to create this. So I don't know if spending maybe 2-3 weeks of my salary for my company was better than paying for the enterprise chunk of GitHub. I don't know. Not a problem for me. Because I learned a lot. I learned a lot of strange and exotic way to work with migrations, and I hope in your case this will save you from spending a lot of time trying things in order to check the perfect way to achieve this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the organizers from having me. And if you want to take a look at the example repository, it's over there.
Thank you. We have time for like one question. Does anyone dare to stand in between a crowd and its lunch? I don't know.
Sorry, people. Don't add me on internet. Danny, a lovely talk, very useful. I was thinking about the CDB, which I think is probably now your favorite. But with CDB, you're basically creating a database dump, it feels like. And my first thought is, how is that going to work when there are multiple developers doing multiple feature branches, doing multiple migrations, and then who's going to do that CDB reset thing?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Well, you need to remember, at least, to create or update the CDB after every merge to your main branch or develop branch if you have multiple deploy branches. Otherwise, you will end up in having maybe a not up-to-date CDB, but at least it will contain your basic structure and it will apply just a few migrations and not all of them. So it's better to remember to update it every time you change something in your migrations, every time you change or add a new migration file. But if you don't remember to do it, then it's not so big of an issue. But it's better for us. We try to remember to update our CDB after every, in our case, after every merge to our develop branch. That is the main develop branch before going to production. But yeah, it's a manual thing, so you need to remember. Or yeah, we can actually create, well, that's a nice idea. We can create a GitHub action, for example, checking if in the merge request there is a migration change, and then it will restore the database, recreate it, and commit it to a new pull request. So that's a good idea. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So, thank you so much, Denny. Want to give you another big applause for
Thank you. Thank you.
an amazing talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say a few things about this lunch that you hinted in the talk. It's
Okay.
unfortunately cancelled.
Oh, no.
No. It's downstairs, and